Okay, thanks for joining. This is Scott Holzoffel, and welcome to today's webinar on Salesforce and SAP integration. We're really excited to have you here because, well, we think this technology is really cool. From a logistics standpoint, we think the webinar is going to be about 20 minutes long with some time for Q&A at the end. So if you like, you can enter questions on the right, and we will answer those once we get to the end of the presentation. So let's do some introductions, and then we'll dig into the content. As I said, my name is Scott Holzoffel, VP of Enterprise Sales. A little bit about my background, though. Prior to this, I was at Salesforce for 3.5 years and VP of Enterprise Sales as well. So you might ask yourself, why the switch? Well, over that 3.5 years, I watched a lot of clients struggle with SAP and Salesforce integration. Everyone, every size, from 200 million in revenue up to huge Fortune 50 clients were implementing both Salesforce and SAP. And they either settled for batch integration or they just gave up because it was too hard, it was too expensive. So when I met Gerald, the co-founder of enosiX, and saw what he had developed, I was like, holy crap, this changes everything. It's not middleware, it's disruptive, it's different. And so we were excited to share a little bit more on a technical level with you today as a follow-up from our previous webinar. And what I'll do is I'll hand it over to Steve. We're lucky to have him on the call as well today. He's a deep technologist with a lot of experience in all these technologies. Steve?
Yeah, thank you, Scott. My name is Stephen Hockheiser, and a little bit of background of myself. I'm in charge of client delivery and development for enosiX. I've been around the enterprise application space for about 25 years on both sides of the fence. I've been a CIO on multiple occasions. I've worked within the SAP market and Oracle markets. So I have experience on both sides. So I could tell you that I've implemented SAP, I've implemented Salesforce, and I've also had to deal with the middleware tools before joining. So when I talk about Informatica or Boomi, I'm talking about it from somebody who's actually has experience trying to integrate Salesforce using the common ETL tools out on the market. So I'm happy to answer your questions at the end, and hopefully this will be a benefit to you. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Steve. So first, just a little bit about our portfolio. As you can see, we do Salesforce and SAP integration, and we're going to focus on that today. We also do native mobile development, creating mobile apps based on SAP, and then we do integrations and IoT. And in short, the big reason we're able to do this is we can connect any front-end system to SAP. But again, today we're going to focus on Salesforce and SAP integration, and then we'll get to our secret sauce, which is what Steve's going to cover as to why we can do this so easily. When you purchased Salesforce, you were trying to connect with your customers in a whole new way. And for the most part, you probably succeeded. And when you purchased SAP, you were trying to help your company become a best-run business. So now you've got your system of engagement in Salesforce and your system of record in SAP, but there's a problem. They're not tightly integrated. So now you have your Salesforce users engaging with their customers, but they don't have actionable data and information to be effective. And that's where enosiX comes in. So if you don't do this, and if you don't do the native integration, you're going to create a lot of problems. And I've seen this from my past at Salesforce. One, you're going to lose productivity. And it can come in various forms. You can have double entry by various admins. There can be swivel chairing back and forth between systems. Unnecessary calls to inside sales and customer support. We probably see this more than anything as we've been meeting with various clients. The biggest drag on productivity is the reps in the field calling and bogging down inside sales and customer support because they don't trust the data. The other issue is that you can't engage with your customers as you'd like because you lack the real-time information on quotes and inventory, shipment tracking, things that the customers want to know when you're in front of them, not when you get back to your desk. So what we can do is we can help you deliver on the promise of those investments. But it begs the question, why aren't people doing this if it's so important? And really the answer is because with traditional tools, it's hard, it's expensive, and it's time consuming. So I'm going to hand it over to Steve and let him cover a little bit about our secret sauce.
Thank you. So the slide pretty much tells the story. So if you look at the traditional method to the left, you have three components in the typical integration of today. You're going to have your back end, which is SAP, that is obviously extremely complex. You have a lot of upstream, downstream dependencies, and it's a lot of customization. So typically you're dealing with a very high level of complexity. You're going to need functionals. You're going to need op guys to connect it to anything. In the middle, you're talking about the traditional middleware, which is really designed back in the old days to handle EDI transactions. It's put in the cloud, and you now have Informatica. You now have the Boomies that also have a level of complexity because they're primarily designed to move data, and you may actually be trying to connect it to an SAP process to try to actually create a transaction, which is typically where they're going to fail. You end up with master data management. You're going to end up with quality of data issues, trying to keep those two systems in sync because they are basically moving data. And then on the front end, you actually usually have the simplest component, which is the UI. So the UIs have typically been developed on web service architectures in the last decade or so, tend to be very flexible. So you're trying to connect a very simple UI like Salesforce to a more complex middleware, to a more complex backend in SAP. So what we're going to walk you through is the enosiX method, where we are trying to basically move you to the front end to spend your time focusing on the front end and let enosiX do the heavy lifting of doing that integration at the API level to the back-end SAP and executing those transactions and allowing you to query that data in real time. Scott?
Thanks, Steve. And if you look along the bottom in the time frame, the traditional method, 6 to 12 months, we think on average it's about 9 months that it takes most companies using traditional tools to do this. So imagine if we can take you from 9 months down to 2 months. So we're saving you 7 extra months of your time. And so then, we talk with clients, well, what are you going to do with that 7 months? We get lots of different answers. It's going to vary for you. But, they're using that time to build more integrations, invest in other applications, provide greater responsiveness to the business, increase competitiveness, or basically just add to the bottom line. Obviously, the options are limitless. My assumption is that you want those 7 months back or you wouldn't have joined. So we'll talk a little bit more about the technology.
All right, so one of the key components in what we call our secret sauce is the enosiX Smart Business Object. And what's critical to understand about it is that this is SAP certified, right? So we are actually an add-on that is sitting within the SAP stack. And the function of that Smart Business Object in an intelligent manner is to do a couple things. One is to execute all those transactions on the SAP side and access all that data in real time. So executing transactions on SAP isn't as simple as just calling a few copies or sequencing. It's a very complex system. So we handle that out of the box. We have a library of these Smart Business Objects. They're installed on the SAP stack. It's certified by SAP as an add-on, and that's going to enable you to quickly communicate. The other piece that's really big is humanize, right? So SAP is clearly a German system and Salesforce is clearly in English. So when you have people with a new UI trying to interact with a system like SAP, they're not going to understand what they're interacting with, and that's why you typically have to bring in the SAP functionals and the op guys and have a big communication stream, and that adds a lot of timeline. So we are basically handling that translation to present to the front-end developer the SAP system in a language they understand. So they're actually going to, instead of saying Z underscore something, they're actually going to say, hey, this is a customer address, and it's going to be in a humanized format where they understand, and then we are going to handle all those CRUD operations. We're going to create, do the updates, and do the views. So we create a very simple environment for the modern UI person to interact with. Now, as part of this, we actually absorb all the customization. So SAP on the back end, everybody who uses it knows there's a bunch of exit routines. People may add attributes to the dictionary. We inherit all that. We're an object-oriented design because it's all anything that's created native SAP. We can inherit through those exit routines, and if it's a complete unique copy, we could simply map that into it as a one-time modification to the SBO, and then that will inherit everything going forward. We also provide pre-built visual force pages, and we'll talk a little bit more about the smart business objects that sit on the Salesforce framework in a moment.
Okay, I'm going to hand the control over to Steve for a short demo.
Okay. Scott, you see my screen, correct?
Yes, you're good.
Okay, great. So this is your standard Salesforce screen, and you'll notice something unique, and this is a little bit about how we interact. So you'll see there's a SAP customer number here. So when you are creating a customer from an account, we will take back that record ID from SAP. So the difference, once again, is we talked earlier about ETL systems move data back and forth. You have to synchronize it. You have to manage the quality. We are exchanging keys because we are actually connecting at the API level. So we're dealing with it on a point-to-point object layer. So we're grabbing those IDs and swapping them. We just create a customer, write it back. And once that customer is written, you'll see all the various tabs pop up with different functions you could perform within SAP. So you'll see here a unique tab that says View Customer Details, Create SAP Customer, Create Sales Order, View Sales Order, etc. When I click on View Customer Details, I'm actually going into SAP and querying the data from SAP in real time. This is not synchronized data that is sitting in Salesforce, and this is this can be customized. We just deliver pre-configured visual force pages, but we'll talk about a little bit later how you can augment these pages with additional data. So all the contact information, all the sales area data, this is all data that is in SAP being presented through the UI. No data synchronization. So I'm going to go back to the account. So because I have that linkage to the customer, I could create a sales order, or I could view the sales data also. So once again, I'm executing a query in SAP. I could limit that query to a specific order, to a PO number, all those search capabilities of SAP. I could pull back the order details in real time, and then I could click on the specific order I'm interested in and drill down further. So I'm going to click on order 5650. And I'm going to bring back the actual details in real time from SAP. So now you can see I'm actually at the line item level of SAP where I can see the material. And if I want to look at deliveries or all the other transactions, those of you who talk to your end users or may use SAP know there's a very cool feature called document flow, which will allow you to see all the transactions in the life cycle of a particular order, the shipments, the movements. So I can actually invoke that right from SC Doc Flow tab here and go directly into document flow and show the life cycle of this order, where I could see here was my initial order, I could show the good movements, the actual delivery. And when you, we'll talk about the enterprise kit, but when you actually acquire the enterprise kit, you get all this basic functionality out of the box. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to accounts and talk a little bit about, so where we go beyond, once again, because we're not just moving data and we're not just accessing at the data layer, we're actually at the object layer. We can actually create transactions and do all the standard back-end processing through the standard SAP BOPs also. So if I wanted to start creating a sales order, I'm actually accessing all these drop-downs from SAP in real time also. I'm going to choose my sales org. Actually, let me just choose this one, type in customer PO, whatever I'm going to do. I can actually just start adding line items exactly as if I was in SAP. Okay, so if I wanted to add this new line item, I could go ahead and start on next one, or I could go ahead and submit the order. Now, the nice thing is it's all those back-end rules. So if a client happens to be on credit block, if they're on a delivery block, if the inventory is blocked, it's going to kick back there as if you're in SAP. So I'm going to go ahead and say create an order. This one should kick back some error message. So you can actually see that my customer 1000 has been assigned an order block, an overall block. Somebody would have to go take care of that so it actually didn't create it. So that whole UI experience, all the rules, all the controls that are established in SAP are being called from Salesforce because we're operating with those smart business objects at an API level and utilizing the entire SAP backend configuration. All right, I think that's it for the demo, Scott.
Okay, great. Thanks, Steve.
So we talked about the Enterprise Edition. We have two different editions. One is a Starter Edition, we call it. So if you're more interested in inquiries or creating customers, you could get the Starter Edition. Literally, it's a same-day install. Fast as your team can install the SAP framework. We have a managed package that also goes into Salesforce, a certified add-on for SAP. You can start using it day one out of the box without any implementation. Includes customers, contacts, quotes, history, sales orders, and sales order history. You move to Enterprise Edition, you could view invoices, you could do customer-specific pricing, delivery information, real-time inventory available to process. You can do RMA processing, return processing, credit card processing, once again, out of the box. So pretty much you install into your test environment, you can start playing with the actual transactions, viewing the real SAP data from your environment, and possibly customize to the point where you want to cater the UI to a particular end user experience very quickly. And once again, that's where we talk about taking the timeline down from 9 months, 12 months down to 2 months under, sometimes weeks if it's out of the box.
Okay, thanks, Steve. So Steve just brought up a great point. He was talking about that gap that we discussed before. We talked about a 7-month gap. I'm going to give a quick example where we actually gave back 10 months of time. So we have a client here that does manufacturing of bulk goods, and they did nightly batch updates from SAP to Salesforce for the product, case management, and accounts. There was a problem, though. They were looking to do real-time order and invoice history. They wanted to do delivery tracking. They wanted to be able to start a return process from Salesforce. So from your Salesforce One app out in the field, you issue a case, take a picture of the damaged good, it submits it, it goes into SAP for the credit approval. And then they also wanted to just simply do account updates on SAP fields directly from Salesforce. So when the client looked at the tool sets that they had, it was going to take them 12 to maybe even 18 months of time. But as Steve pointed out, we've got a lot of technology that's out of the box. And so we were able to go in, scope, understand the solution, and this is going to be completed in 3 weeks because a lot of what they're doing is standard and out of the box. So now we didn't just give back 7 months, we gave back somewhere between 10 and 17 months, which is very powerful, and it speaks to the pre-built SBOs that we provide.
So when you look at it, once again, the enosiX framework, there's two sides of the framework. So typically, if you look into connecting in a traditional manner, I have my front-end guy, he maybe do some service calls. Informatica may provide a basic adapter or Boomi. Their adapters are typically limited to a couple master data sets. They don't absorb anything custom. They don't handle exit routines. And you're going to start that process of working with the front-end UI developer, the middleware developer, and the back-end developers, we create with a point-and-click object integrator, we create all those classes, Apex classes, directly from that generator, from the SBO, which allows you to instantly start consuming that data. Plus, we deliver all that basic functionality in pre-configured visual force pages. Doesn't mean you won't make changes, doesn't mean you can't make changes, but we accelerate that, quite frankly, by just creating those object classes with a proprietary code generator. Okay, next one. And we'll look at a little bit more detail. So this is an example of, once again, the output. It's very hard to read, I'm sure, on the screen, but basically on one side, you have the Smart Business object, which is existing in SAP in the framework, a code generator that literally you point and click, you click on it, it will kick out all the Apex classes, and that's what the visual force pages are actually calling from the server standpoint. And if you were to look at this, once again, you would see the fact that it's humanized within there, where an address is called an address, a customer is called a customer. There's no, German on the back end to naming conventions that are going to be hard for a front-end developer to access should they want to customize those visual force pages. So a conversation that comes up quite a bit as people look at Lightning Connect is, well, is this going to work with Lightning Connect? And just the same way we would be an accelerator to, launch the Enterprise Edition, create sales orders, view data. Yeah, we are able to output Lightning Connect adapters. We are actually building that as a standard functionality to come out in the next release, where you can actually generate, at the same time you do the code gen, a Lightning Connect adapter where you can access that same data from the SBO. So Lightning Connect is in its early evolution itself, and as it becomes more and more capable to process transactions, we will support that. But at the moment, it supports easy access to data, and we supply that data also in a very simplified manner. So this is a view of the actual architecture, and people always talk about, well, what about security and what's really happening here? Once again, to be a certified add-on, we have to communicate through the SAP ICF node, no different than their NetWeaver stack. Their gateway communicates through ICF, so we're using the exact same security protocols that SAP would to communicate with any kind of external application. So we are basically using mostly a HTTPS connection, most customers. Some have said, hey, we'd like to do a VPN. Some have taken others, but we're using the standard encrypted connection that is certified by SAP.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it. So just to review one more time, and by now you've probably come to the same conclusion that we have, which is your ROI with the enosiX framework is going to be much higher than it is with a traditional iPaaS. And there's several reasons for that. First off, no additional middleware or hardware. The second part is easy access to SAP and transactions. As you can see, we've pre-built 80% of what you need, so we're giving you more out of the box so that you can get back time in other areas. Also, we have agile integrations, easy to adopt your customizations into our framework, as Steve talked about. And of course, we're accelerating integration. This doesn't have to be a rip and replace. That was the case study that we gave before. We didn't take out Boomi and Informatica in that case study. We simply augmented what they needed to do in real time so that they could continue delivering value to the business. And then no rewrites when you upgrade. This is huge. So we run on everything from 4.7 up to S/4HANA. So if you're on ECC 6 and you're upgrading to S/4HANA sometime in the near future, you're not going to have to rewrite these integrations. And then lastly, the integrations are just cleaner because we're not trying to sync data and we're working at the object level. So how do you engage with enosiX? We want to set the right expectations so you get better outcomes. So we do a series of steps. First and foremost, we do a discovery workshop with you and your team. We'll do a detailed review of our technology, talk about integration projects and roadmaps, and do an initial fit assessment for our technology with you. Then what we're going to help you do is an impact analysis. So this is a sponsored assessment of potential gains, but also impediments or risks associated with the project, so that we're all aware of what we're working on. And then lastly, we'll do a proposed action. So when it's appropriate, we're going to present a proposal for implementing our framework and smart business object library. Lastly, I did want to point out, last slide before we get to Q&A, we will be at Dreamforce. We're going to be presenting, if you're going in the admin zone, on Wednesday, October 5th at 10:30 Pacific time. Please come visit. And then we will also have a booth at MD 36 in Moscone South. This is a great event. Please reach out to us. We'd love to chat with you while we're there, and hopefully you can stop by for our presentation. So at this time, I'm going to look and see if you have any questions. Please enter them here, and Steve and I will answer. So far we have one. Steve, the one question, what needs to be installed on SAP?
So it's a standard transport. So you, depending on the version, you will have the smart business objects in the framework itself. Framework typically is a sane install, and then the SBOs are a transport. Okay. They're very light. Typically, it's an hour install.
I'm going to pause one more minute here for any additional questions. Okay. Then the question number 2, how do we manage security?
So security is managed no different than SAP security. When you configure the user within Salesforce, he is using an SAP user, so he has only access to those transactions or those views that he has in SAP. So it fully leverages SAP for security. And you can even assign someone to a different client, you know, so that's all part of the configuration directly from Salesforce, where you'll say which system they're accessing, which landscape, and then all the security is managed by SAP.
Thanks. Another question says, given the speed, why the 2 months?
It usually comes down to, if it's a very large, complex organization, they may have created custom BOPs themselves. So if you're using a fairly generic, not a lot of customization around the order to cash process, the customizations are off somewhere else, then that could be very short. If you're dealing with the fact that, hey, we created a completely new processing routine from scratch, that may have to be mapped in. So we usually use 80% as the indicator. But, you know, as Scott said, we had somebody who was 3 weeks, you know. So it's really, do you want to cater the UI to the user experience, which is really more on the Salesforce Visual Force side? Do you want to, how heavy of the integration test do you want to do? So when you talk about those weeks, it includes, you know, design, it includes configuration, it includes multiple conference room pilots. So it could literally, if you wanted what was out of the box, you could install it today and run with it tomorrow, quite frankly. What we're finding is that people tend to be a little bit more hands-on, and the larger the organization, the more customization we might see, which is still, if you were to talk about a standard SAP integration, trying to integrate a new customization, you talk about multiple months. It's usually a week, a few days to a week for us to customize the smart business object to absorb that customization.
Great, thanks. We have another question. Does it work with other SAP solutions such as SCM and EWM? So
if you take a hub approach, right, because in the end, SAP external solutions typically are feeding data back to SAP. So typically, we could take that data, some external data, and then take some of the data from SAP and bring it into Salesforce We have a client in the UK where they have multiple SAP instances, and then they have a unique instance to the aerospace called Quantum, where we're doing an integration. We have a field service application running with a large client of ours where they actually pull down documents from PLM. So using a combination of the data from the external system, if they could do a service call, we would usually bring that data back into the SBO also. So yeah, we can connect external systems. You're going to get the most robustness from the SAP side, but we are able to pull in external data, and we are doing it today.
Okay, great. Next question: what expertise, programming, etc., is required for this technology?
Really limited, because once again, the SBOs are pretty much a certified add-on you're going to add in. We would determine if there's a additional SBO up front, and then that's pretty much ready to go into maintenance mode. So very limited, really the ability to connect a visual force page to the Apex classes we give you is all you really need.
Okay, thanks. Another question: at what phase of an SAP launch would integration efforts make sense? What milestones might I be watching for as our implementation matures?
Yeah, so, it really comes down to if you're brand new, if you've never used SAP before, the learning curve for doing it through Salesforce is probably quicker, right? I mean, it's an easier UI, it's point and click, it's simpler. If you don't understand your back-end processes and you're having somebody reconfigure on the SAP side consistently, then that exposes you to having to go out there and make changes on visual force pages because somebody also determines they need a custom process. So typically, if you want to just put your toes into the water, you could just do the inquiries, install the package, start doing inquiries, start adding fields, interacting with those classes we provide. We give you, 80, 90% out of the box, and you can learn the technology that way, and then start introducing transactions. That's what we find is that even when somebody says, hey, we just want to give our field sales access to inquiries, somebody finally comes along and says, why don't we just have them create the transaction? And because they're still having to email this information to inside sales, or we have to have two people working on transaction, let's just give the guy in the field the transaction. So as long as you have an idea of how your order to cash process is running and you feel like that's pretty stable, it's fine, but it's designed to evolve with SAP, right? I mean, we're future-proof, we're not going to have a problem with any kind of upgrade. So if today you're on 5.0 and you're still talking about 6.0, you still could implement it and then do a standard upgrade to 6.0, and there's going to be really no additional overhead created by the enosiX integration. Okay. So I would say mostly a stable fill for what you want your order to cash process to look like.
Okay, we have another question. So for that information, such as products, customers that need to be used in transactions, such as opportunities or leads in Salesforce, these will need to be actually loaded into Salesforce. It's only for additional transactions such as sales orders, etc., that already reside in SAP that we could use this enosiX. Is that correct? No,
that's not true. We're calling the material from SAP. Everything's called in SAP in real time. You don't need to have a product residing in Salesforce. The only initial connection that is made is when you create the customer. So the customer is a link. You're going to do product lookups from SAP in real time based upon how they're tied to the actual Salesforce. So if Salesforce 1 is allowed the different catalogs in Salesforce 2, that's all on that back end, and that's what it's going to call. So you don't need any master. There's no master data required in Salesforce other than that customer link. And if you already have 1,000 customers in there, you could do that you could do that link as a one-time update to associate to the customer. Nothing else is required.
Great question. One more. Which SAP releases are supported, and does it require HANA?
No. So all releases are supported and it doesn't require HANA. We sit in the ABAP layer, so all the releases are in ABAP. So you don't require gateway, you don't require HANA. It's database neutral, just like SAP.
Okay, we have another one. Does paymetric integration add a lot of complexity?
No. So just like everything else, we have a credit card processing SBO, and that credit card processing SBO calls all the native SAP functionality. SAP has a very long history of integrating to paymetric, so it's all standard function calls on the back end, standard BOPs. So we are executing all of those. So there is no additional work of connecting Salesforce to it. We're actually going to call the URL. If you're doing an iframe to pass credit card information, we actually call that from the SAP side. So it's the same story. It's all happening on the SAP side. Salesforce is basically visual pages are skinned to call and execute transactions and receive data from the SAP system.
Okay, another question. This data cannot be used for dashboarding in Salesforce, correct?
So, yeah, so we don't sync data, but that doesn't mean we don't have syncing capabilities because Salesforce has syncing capability. So where people have wanted to support standard views of data, without adding that complexity, you can also run any mash of data through an SBO. So we usually, somebody will say, hey, we want to be able to still see a report to support all these views. There's 30 different attributes coming from multiple files. Can you present that data as a synchronization? Sync it every half hour. We do that. So reporting always comes up because people may not have a BI environment in place. So to support those views, we can go ahead and dashboard that data.
Okay. Steve, I'm going to give you a break. I can actually handle this one question. How does the licensing work? We license by user. So as we showed earlier, there's a starter edition and an enterprise edition. For every Salesforce user, you would need a starter or enterprise edition. One more here. No master data item unless you want to use Salesforce opportunity products in other transactions.
I don't quite understand the question.
Yeah, sorry, I'm reading it as I see it. We can follow up separately. Another one, Salesforce reporting. Can it report on the SAP data, or does it need to be in Salesforce? I think you just answered that one, Steve. So I think at this time, that concludes all of the questions, and we appreciate you hanging on for the extra minutes to speak with us today. We will follow up separately with a recording, copy of the recording, and please reach out to myself or Steve for follow-on conversations, and we look forward to talking to you. Have a great Labor Day weekend.